Hello and welcome to PeopleGoal's weekly webcast where we discuss the latest HR topics to help you thrive. My name is Maddie and I am an HR growth analyst here at PeopleGoal, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Chrissa and James. So if we could start with some quick introductions, that would be great. Chrissa, let's start with you.
Hello, Maddie and James. I'm Chrissa. I'm an HR professional working for tech companies over the last years, and I'm very happy to participate in this webcast.
Hi, everyone. I'm James. I'm also an HR growth analyst, and I'm quite passionate about engagement. I'm excited to get talking about it.
Great. So let's get started. Today, we're going to be discussing employee engagement, which is a really hot topic at the moment. And just to give a bit of context, the benefits of monitoring and developing a more engaged workforce are endless. Organizations running annual or biannual engagement surveys should reconsider the frequency of their surveys to bolster their organizational performance and development. So in this webcast, we're going to ask and hopefully answer the question, how can you drive better employee engagement? The webcast today is going to look a little bit like this. We'll start with an introduction and really drill down on what is continuous engagement. We will then move on to the philosophy behind continuous engagement so we can better understand what it is and how to implement it. Next, we'll cover some of the benefits that can be derived from implementing continuous engagement within your organization, as well as some of the methods that you can use to measure engagement and some of the practical implications you should use to ensure best practices. Finally, we'll sum up with some key takeaways to help you drive better engagement within your organization. So we'll start with what is engagement, and I'm happy to be handing over to James.
Thank you. So yeah, what is engagement? We've broken it down to 4 little subcategories here. But essentially, through engagement, a workplace culture can be nurtured over time with well-defined employee initiatives tied to a corporate vision. The practice of engaging employees to be fully involved and act in a way that furthers the organization's success. Engagement enables you to create a unique experience for every employee based on their motivators and recognition for achievements. And additionally, and last but not least, you've got the regular communication of high-level goals with full transparency around changing expectations and priorities. So with a combination of all of these, essentially what engagement allows you to do is just bring the employee into the organization and make them feel a part of it. It just brings value and enables everyone to cooperate and really get engaged.
Excellent. And I think this is a really important topic at the moment, as research has shown that only 1/3 of employees are engaged, and that's leaving a gigantic 2/3 of organizations which find themselves actively disengaged, which can really harm organizational success, which is something we really need to remedy.
Great. So let's see the fundamental principles of continuous employee engagement. Actually, continuous employee engagement is going beyond company outings and team building exercises. It's more important about creating a deeper connection between employees, what they do, what the organization is doing, and their collective impact. That can be achieved through the practices that we are highlighting here, and I will elaborate more. So, continuous feedback loop. We need to shift from traditional approaches, such as annual surveys, to a culture of a continuous feedback. We also need to consider the frequency and make it meaningful so we don't create employee fatigue. We should conduct regular surveys to demonstrate willingness to invest in employee experience. Moreover, we need to facilitate a supporting environment where we let employees know they are valued and appreciated by listening closely to their opinions and creating an inclusive culture. Moreover, we need to have ongoing performance conversations, regularly communicate goals and identify development opportunities, include employees in decision-making, ask for their input, and actually incorporate a bottom-to-top decision-making, and recognize achievements, celebrate important milestones, acknowledge effort, as well as successes.
Absolutely. I think this is a really good summary of what's behind continuous engagement. And I think a really interesting point here is that we're seeing a shift from these one-off surveys where potentially departments would engage with their measuring employee engagement once a year or perhaps twice a year. And what really needs to happen is to build engagement from the beginning again. And to do this, we need a continuous system, which is not only done measured in the way of surveys, but is really contributing to this culture of continuous feedback within the organization.
When we talk about the benefits of continuous engagement, we've got like a nice little circle here to kind of show the cycle of the continuous nature of itself. Essentially, we begin with the value by the fact that it improves performance. It's a known fact that engaged employees are going to be more motivated, satisfied, and dedicated. Quite simply, they're going to be more enthused by their work, so therefore it's going to drive higher productivity. As a result of this as well, teams will know their value. Employees will have a clear voice and know their opinion matters. They'll feel as though they are truly considered a part of the organization. They won't just feel belittled, but they'll feel as though they actually contribute to what's going on all around them. And this enables us to build a united organization. It facilitates open communication and collaboration, top down and bottom up. All the different cogs and wheels of this mechanism of your business or organization are going to be able to develop and grow together and create a strong workforce and reduce voluntary turnover rates. Essentially, within that, it's this ability for employees to all kind of collaborate and really become something greater than their individual selves. And it's this fact that when you show care, you send a message, the management really cares about each and every employee. The considering and valuing of employees and the encouraging of them to really cooperate and become a part of the organization is what helps everything flourish. And then as a result of this as well, once your employees become more engaged, they're going to be more infused, be more creative and innovative when it comes to finding solutions. And equally, when it comes to discovering issues, they'll be able to discover smaller issues at an earlier stage, which prevent issues from escalating and becoming much bigger problems for your company.
Great. Now let's move to tools for engagement. Firstly, a great way to create engagement and link individual impact with overall company success is through visibility surveys. The purpose of visibility surveys is to give the opportunity to get close to leadership towards having visibility over critical business matters. In practice, you run a poll to capture trending employee matters, and the most voted questions are addressed by the leadership team in a QA all hands session. Moreover, pulse surveys give the organization the freedom to measure whatever they think it's important to measure on a regular basis. With pulse surveys, we can track the same item over time. For example, a question might be, how likely are you to recommend your company as a place to work to people you know? And get responses on that specific question, which is more likely an informal question compared to annual surveys. They are considerably shorter compared to annual engagement surveys and much easier for employees to complete, more frequent than traditional surveys, and they can happen at a regular time interval. Moreover, checking on employees' well-being and DI impact is also very important. So, genuine interest around employees' mental and physical state, perception of equal opportunities and fair treatment will further increase engagement levels. The purpose of embracing well-being and DI surveys is to identify areas other than purely job-related that require the company's attention as they may inhibit employee performance and productivity. Also, monthly engagement surveys. With monthly recurring check-ins, you get an insight into how happy employees are at work. A very good practice is to use lightweight questions to allow employees to respond in seconds, and then analyze sentiment trends over time and informal feedback provided. Moreover, with culture surveys, you can get insights from employees that are associated with the organization's business practices around culture initiatives and make enhancements in leadership strategies, future investments, and overall changes in the organization. Finally, with one-to-ones, although it's not part of engagement, more likely part of performance, you can leverage on one-on-ones to get an opportunity to discuss employee performance and at the same time identify levels of engagement. To achieve this, you need to train managers on how to make questions that can diagnose employees' emotional attachment with the company, but it's a very successful and easy way to get a snapshot of employee engagement that is also related to performance issues, development issues, and other more personal employee issues.
Thank you, Chrissa. That was really insightful. And I think here what we're trying to do is show that there is a really broad range of options out there to measure engagement. You're really not limited in the method with which you use to track employee engagement. There's not just the one-off survey. There is a wide range of different options you can use. And we would recommend pick a few or use a combinations of the options suggested here to find out what suits your company culture and what your employees and managers have time to do. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to do everything, but picking a few of these options would be a really good way to start improving engagement within your organization.
Touching on to metrics for engagement now, we've got the two different channels. So we've got, firstly we'll go with quantitative data. Quantitative data can be converted and understood through data sheets. These can give averages and indications of general responses towards various aspects of your company. For example, you could look into Likert scale questions. These are an indicator of employee satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 5. It's useful just for simply determining that employee satisfaction. You can kind of work out, asking a range of questions, whether your employees strongly agree, strongly disagree with certain factors that are going on. And it will generally just give you a representation of how they feel. Additionally, then you've got the ENPS, the Employee Net Promoter Score. A similar idea in the fact you've got an indicator of employee loyalty, this one on a scale of 1 to 10. This being broken up between detractors, passive, and then promoters within your workforce. Promoters are obviously the ideal employee because they're going to be able to encourage other people from outside to come and get involved with your company. Then finally, touching on the happiness index. This is quite straightforward. It's more involved with the mood and general well-being of your employees. It's important to show that you're all interested in learning about and trying to understand how your employees are getting along, whether they're happy with their work, and then also trying to determine what kind of factors might be influencing their happiness in general. Qualitative data enables us to learn about the words and opinions that your workforce use through written descriptions in the responses they provide. It gives an idea about specific pain points, enables you to gather advice on precisely how employees would like to see change, or they can also enable you to attain personal experiences of working in your company. It's valuable as well to consider how the descriptions will give almost a word example, the actual written description of what the issues are, as opposed to the numerical examples given in quantitative. And I think it's this balance of the two, finding striking the balance between the both of them that will enable us to find a more holistic representation of employee engagement.
Absolutely, it's a really good idea to leverage both quantitative and qualitative data in your surveys. Like James said, when you're using quantitative data, you can create clear metrics for success, you can create data analysis reports, and have a very objective view of engagement within your organization. However, that only provides part of the picture, and to have a full picture, you need to have those personal responses from employees, as they will really give you the answers that you need to make changes within your own organization. And doing this will improve your employee engagement.
Absolutely.
So now I'm going to discuss some of the practical implications you should need to consider when implementing your surveys, specifically in regard to the frequency. So first of all, it's really important to establish a baseline to your employee engagement surveys. If you've never done an engagement survey before, that's absolutely fine, but we advise that you kick off with a more comprehensive survey so you can benchmark your data and then set up pulse surveys to monitor progress. Next, be consistent. Ensure your surveys have a regular cadence. Doing, as we've previously discussed, having one survey a year really isn't enough. So you need to be consistent and ensure that you are regularly finding out feedback from employees. But also, you need to bear in mind your resources. Do you have the time and the people available to act on the information that you gather? It's all very well running multiple surveys per month, but if there's not a dedicated team who have the time to act on the results, then there's really no point in doing this. So it's really important to strike a balance between consistency and resources. Next, it is important to keep in mind survey fatigue. The more frequent the survey, the lower the response rate. So again, it's all about striking a balance as to what works within your organization. And to find this out, you just have to get started and try. If you start to notice that survey responses are dropping, then potentially you need to dial back your surveys a little bit. But if you're finding that you're having really high response rates, then potentially it's something you can look to increase. Also, we advise that you avoid certain periods which might skew the data. For example, particularly stressful quarters for your organization, or holiday season where bonuses are being given might lead to or might influence the survey results. One of our best practices is to plan for slow periods for your organization. Firstly, this will give employees the time that they need to fill in the surveys, but also, while some people might say that's counterintuitive to have a slow period, as potentially employees will be feeling a bit disengaged at this time, it will actually give you a more accurate picture of engagement within your organization. Finally, and potentially the most important, is to use technology for your engagement surveys. It's really essential to automate them so you as an HR professional can dedicate more time to acting on the changes. Gone are the times where paper-based systems are going to fill this gap. So research a survey provider, an employee engagement survey provider, there's lots out there, and they will really help you to save time on the more practical side, so you can focus on taking actions that will improve employee engagement within your organization. Next, we will discuss some of the best practices surrounding the topic. So first of all, you need to consider the time interval and ask questions that are relevant to a specific point in time, act quickly, and action plan in a timely manner. What this means is, you need to consider what time of year you're going to run the survey and how that is going to affect the type of data you want to collect. For example, we're just approaching the new year, and it would be a good time to find out for Q1 what employees want to see from their organization. Next, it's important to consider the area or that you want to drill down on. Confirm which areas you want to diagnose before sending out the survey. This could be, for example, organizational resilience is something that you're interested in, or perhaps it's employee well-being, or even diversity and inclusion. Because if you're asking ineffective questions that aren't very specific to the area that you're tackling, you will potentially get irrelevant responses and your survey effort will potentially fail. Next, we touched on it before with the frequency, but it's really important to have internal benchmarks and to benchmark your data against historic data in order to get valuable periodic insights and determine effectiveness of your action plans. You can do this by doing a more comprehensive survey at the beginning of the year and then more regular pulse surveys to monitor your progress. Finally, we advise that you experiment. That's the best way to find out what works for your organization and your unique culture. You can start small with a simple employee net promoter score and an optional comment and take it from there to develop more comprehensive surveys. Also, you can experiment with transparent and anonymous surveys. It's well known that when you do an anonymous survey, it's much more likely to get an accurate picture of your organization. So we would perhaps suggest you start with anonymous surveys so employees don't feel that they will be penalized for giving negative feedback. And once you achieve this culture of continuous engagement and continuous feedback, potentially something you can look to do is make your surveys transparent. So you can find out which areas of your organization, which employees feel which way. Perhaps that was something that's really interesting to also analyze, but we would recommend to start with anonymous surveys if your organization is new to giving feedback in this way.
Great points, Maddie, and all very relevant and practical, and specifically around the topic of the survey, which is very important to consider before running the survey in order to make sure that it will be a successful effort.
Exactly. And the phrase comes to mind, treat your employees like customers. The same way that you would plan the topic for your customers, you need to do the same for your employees.
So I can go ahead with the data analysis and action taking. So which is actually the bottom line, as it is of no value to run surveys without taking action upon the findings. The idea here is to collect data and reach on conclusions that will help create a better and more engaged workforce. As James mentioned previously, we should use metrics such as ENPS, Likert scale, happiness index, and qualitative data in order to be able at a later stage to interpret the responses and make meaningful conclusions towards taking appropriate actions. Moreover, we should consider the following. A survey cannot create engagement. It is a mean to measure engagement. You can create engagement only by taking action. Moreover, decide who is accountable for implementing changes driven by the results. This could be the HR team, the leadership team, etc. Dedicate an allotted team to process the responses and decide on actions. Establish a cross-organizational team between employees and the senior leader. And finally, decide how you will communicate the results to the wider organization. And as we mentioned before, visibility surveys could be used for this purpose.
So let's sum up all that we've talked about today and give you some key takeaways to remember after listening to this webcast. Firstly, it is essential to practice continuous employee engagement. Next, it is really important to run a regular cadence of employee surveys, but being mindful of survey fatigue. Utilize a combination of qualitative and quantitative approaches to ensure that you have the best data with which to drive real results. Automate your survey cycles using engagement software to free up more time for HR departments to focus on issues that really matter, like strategic planning for the survey topics and frequency, and for acting on the results. And most important of all is to analyze your data and implement action plans based on your findings. Without this, your engagement efforts are pointless. So once you've created a really outstanding survey, you've decided which type of survey you're going to use, the type of data you're going to collect, the topics that you're going to focus in on, and you've automated these surveys to periodically arrive in your employees' inboxes, analyze your data and act on it to ensure the best increases in employee engagement.
I think one of the things that really stands out from the takeaways for me is the first point about continuous engagement. I think when you create a rhythm of regular surveys for employees, it just becomes more, almost second nature for them to be giving that kind of feedback. If you're just doing it every maybe once a year, or just really, without much kind of thought or much preparation, it becomes less consistent, and almost employees become a bit lost with what they're meant to be saying, or maybe don't quite say everything they feel they should or ought to, because they kind of just feel a bit lost. I think that's one of the strong points of really keeping that continuous level of engagement.
Absolutely, James, I completely agree. And the more often that you give your employees the opportunity to give feedback, the better that they will get at giving feedback. And this is, once you get into the rhythm of it, it's when you'll really start to see some real innovation in your organization. So absolutely. Okay, and that's it from us in terms of content. If you would like to get more PeopleGoal insights, feel free to download the research slides. Check out upcoming and on-demand webcasts at peoplegoal.com/resources/webcasts. And if you would like to connect with us on our socials, find us at PeopleGoal on LinkedIn and on Twitter. Here are some further resources if you would like to learn more about this topic. Check out our blog, How to Improve Employee Engagement Processes by Benchmarking Engagement Survey Metrics, Stress Awareness Week, How to Use Employee Wellbeing Surveys, Engagement Surveys, How to Track Improvements in Employee Engagement. Finally, if you would like to suggest a topic or be a guest in one of our upcoming webcasts, email me at maddie.o'neill@peoplegoal.com. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you, Carissa and James, for joining me today.